Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deepsouth Homestead. Making a video today. Wanted to come to you and talk to you just a little bit about some things that's going on. I'm getting piles of emails, personal letters, comments, all these different kind of things about, Danny, have you seen this? What about this? I'm very concerned about that. And I want to try to address a little bit of them today and maybe make a little sense out of some of them. First off, I've seen tons of things been sent to me about Kansas, the Tyson plant in Kansas going down. You know, Danny, how is this going to affect us? Well, it's going to be a big blow to the meat industry. According to what I was able to research on it, found out Tyson produces close to, or slaughters close to 6,000 head of cattle a day through that place. Now that's a lot of meat. But let me say this. With the number of cattle that was lost in Nebraska this past winter with all the flooding and stuff like that, you know, we've lost a lot of cattle this year. And the fact now that we have a factory going down that cannot process 6,000 head of cows a day, that, if you look at it from a marketing standpoint, that will help absorb some of the loss, in other words. Now, yes, I can see where there's going to be an increase in the price of beef. Now, I told you all months ago that probably come late October, November, December, we're probably going to see an increase in the price of beef, especially next year. But it didn't have anything to do with the Tyson plant going down because the Tyson plant hadn't burned at that time. It was projected at that time through some of the beef industry that due to the number of cattle that was lost and the fact that we have as many cows in the United States now as we did in the 50s and our population is higher, that there would be an increase in the price of beef. Now, up front, because of the grain issues and everything that we've been having, the prices would go down because farmers would realize they couldn't feed their cows through the winter months and they would dump them all into the market all at once, and the market would be flooded with beef, and therefore the prices would go down before they went up. Well, now that the Tyson plant has burnt, I really don't see that part of it happening. I don't see the price of beef going down now before it actually goes up, because I don't see how they can flood the market as fast now with one of the plants being gone, especially one that produced that much beef. So that's kind of my take on what happened out there. Now, will it affect our prices? Yeah, it's going to affect our prices somewhat in the future because this plant has to rebuild itself. But the fact that we have less cattle than we used to have, I do believe that the market can absorb it. I'm going to say that. Now, one of the other things I've been sent a lot is, Danny, have you seen Del Monte is closing 4 of their plants because of food shortages? And guys, I have dug into this and dug into it. And Del Monte themselves, or I haven't found it if it's out there, has not come out yet and said that they're closing their plants because of food shortages. What I have found said by Del Monte is that Del Monte is cutting back on production because they are not able to compete with all of the other companies that's out there. They took a hard blow with the fruit industry, and that has really took a toll on them. And it doesn't really come out and say it, but I'm going to speculate at this point and say that probably a lot of what's going on is the simple fact that there's so many non-generic brands out there now that's cheaper that people are buying. And there's Del Monte did say that they're trying to restructure. They're trying to do a better job of marketing, and they are trying to get their product out there at a cheaper price to compete with these non-generic brands that we have out there on the market. Now, those things I have found that Del Monte said, but I have not found anywhere that Del Monte said they're cutting back because of food shortages. Now, could it be that it's underlying and they're not saying anything about it right now because they don't want to create a panic? on the food industry, that is possible. Now, and I've also been sent some things where people have sent me some messages. I'm trying to keep all this in my head. There's a plant in West Virginia that makes tin cans for people like Del Monte, and I mean, I'm not saying they make them for Del Monte, but they're tin cans like tomato soup comes in and green beans come in, all this kind of stuff. I did find one place where it said that, and I don't remember exactly where it was at, what the name of it would tell you right now because I looked at so much stuff, where they talked about the production of metal cans is down now because there's not a demand for them. Now, I don't know if the Del Monte plant's closing is a direct, has a direct issue with these tin can issues, not being able to produce enough tin cans now. The quota is not being met, so they're having to lay people off in the steel industry there where they make these at, and stuff like that. It's quite possible with the closing of the Del Monte plants. Now, see, and let me say something else about the Del Monte plants. This is not the first time this has happened. Last year, Del Monte closed several plants in North Carolina, Indiana, and Illinois, and different places like this around. They closed plants, but nobody said anything about it because there wasn't the quote-unquote scare of a food shortage. Okay, this is not new. This happened last year also. So Del Monte has closed many plants in the last few years and laid off tons of people. But the one in West Virginia that mentioned they don't have enough business now, let's use that word, to make the tin cans to keep the factory up and running. One article I read did say that the lack of ability to get food for these cans and some of the other chains was playing an effect on their ability to make these tin cans in the quantity that they needed to make them in. So just to address a few of those videos there. Now, one of the big issues here that I'm looking at with food, we have to talk about food as being a global thing now because it is strictly global now. It's not just us anymore. China has pulled all of its buying from the U.S. right now. Now that's one of the issues that that we're facing with China. China has now started cutting deals with Brazil and different other countries around the world, in North Africa specifically, about purchasing from them, and they have pulled all of their buying back from the United States now. And I looked into this to figure out, now, why is this really happening? Well, China right now is banking on the fact that Trump is not going to be reelected, and they're trying to hold out, if we use that word, till the presidential elections to see if we won't get another president in office, possibly a Democrat president that they can bully around a little bit and get their way with. Now, I have found some information pushing in that direction, that they're holding out for the next presidential election, and they're cutting deals with other countries till then. And I have found that. Now, China at this point is becoming a prepper nation rather than a purchasing nation. Now, that's one thing that I have read up on. I've been doing a lot of reading up on China because China really does a really good job of keeping records and stuff like that. And I've mentioned this about the grand solar minimum. If you go back and look at any period in history where there was a grand solar minimum, a huge one, the Chinese usually fell during that time. Their dynasties fell. And China now doesn't want that to happen. They have enough computer programs, they have enough stuff now that they can look back in the past and they can see where they've made mistakes in the past, and they are becoming a prepper nation now instead of a purchasing nation. Because, let's face it, the United States alone doesn't even raise enough hogs to feed the nation of China. If we took every pig we raised in the United States, it's still not enough to feed China alone. So China has got to really ramp up its stuff and start doing some prepping and figuring out where they're going to get their pork from because of the disease issue they had this past year. And they're having to cut deals with other countries. So we see that is becoming a massive, massive issue, and that's going to affect our food prices here. You know, I mean, we have to come to the realization that our food prices are not just based on us alone. They're based on a global market. Now, we also, when we look at the global market, we have to understand that how or what, let me ask you, what else will affect our food prices here in the United States, or our food production here in the United States? What else is going to affect that? Well, I also look into a lot of weather channels. They are now predicting, because of what they see coming from the north down, that September is going to be colder than it usually is, which means that they're using, this is the words that some of them are using on those broadcasting programs, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture is saying that because the colder air is coming down quicker than it normally would, it's going to hamper the growth of corn that's already growing, because it's going to turn cooler quicker, and the corn is not going to have time to mature as fast. Now, they're not concerned about food production in the sense of for human consumption, because a lot of this corn that's grown is for ethanol, cattle feed, and stuff like that, as we've talked about on other videos. What they are saying is now there's been a rate of ethanol used in gasoline has been around 10% for many, many, many years now. They're actually talking about raising the amount of ethanol in gasoline up to as much as 35% now. And guys, if they do that, our gasoline engines are just not, especially not the older ones, are just not designed for that. It'll just destroy them. Literally will destroy them. And that could be a plot, if you're a tinfoil hat kind of person, that, or a conspiracy theorist, that could be a plot in the future for that happening. Now, I'm not saying it is going to be what's in there for what's happening. I'm saying it could be leading up to that. And we know that September, they're saying, is going to be a colder month, which means that the cold air will be coming down into the United States, I guess I might say, a lot faster than it normally is. And they're talking about coming all the way to the Gulf Coast where I live at. So, and then we look and we see that Canada, some of the Canadian news that I'm looking at, and some of you, our fellow subscribers in Canada, might can maybe elaborate in the comments down below a little bit about this, but I've found some stuff that says that Canada already has snows and frost and ice and stuff like that predicted for September before their crops ever get completely grown up there, which is going to be devastating to the crop producing part of Canada as far as food production is concerned. So we see that cold air is not only coming into the United States, but the snows and everything like that is going to be coming in a lot earlier to Canada. The weather stations are predicting, now these are some Canadian stations I looked at, is predicting that they will be coming in a lot earlier and a lot quicker to them. Now, a lot of the, as far as talking about food production, I've come across some things that on my own here that says that apple production for 2019 is at an all-time low. Some apple farms have not even been able to harvest any apples. All their apples have been bad. They just have nothing. You know, the apples just ruined on the trees. And what places that do normally sell apples will not be selling apples this year. They will be actually marketing their apples. In other words, I'm talking about the U-picket places. They'll not be allowing U-pickets. They'll be marketing their apples in a way that will make them the most profit because of the loss that they have experienced through their marketing. Now, another thing I come across looking at the agricultural reports is that there are now, and I can't even name the number of counties. I mean, it's just astronomical as to the number of counties and the number of states in the United States that are growing counties for food that have been declared natural disaster areas by our United States government and by the United States Department of Agriculture, which means that yes, a lot of these farmers that's producing the food will be subsidized. They will get their money for insurances and stuff like that. So they financially will not suffer, but yet the production of food will be lower than what it normally is. Let's just say that. Because now that they have the insurance money, a lot of them, I've read some articles where they're just not even putting forth any effort to even get back out into the fields and to try to even do anything with them, because they know they're going to get their crop insurance money. So rather than burn extra fuel, put hours on their equipment and stuff like this, they've decided to just let the fields lay and just go to waste. And that's sad, but it's their way of survival. Now, what we're seeing happen in this country is that we are moving now because of, you remember the UN report that I gave y'all here a while back, we're moving from more of a meat-based society to a plant-based society. We have tons of meat products on the market. If you go to the store now and you buy meat, you buy hamburger patties and you buy all this stuff, you have to be very careful what you're buying, especially if it's boxed and prepackaged or breaded or whatever, because a lot of them are not pure hamburger meat. They're not pure beef, in other words. A lot of them are made with soy. There's a lot of plant-based hamburger meats out there now. They're trying to stretch what meat they have. And then you just have the fact that you just have lab meat out there. You go into places like these fast food restaurants, these drive-through restaurants and stuff like that. A lot of those do soy burgers now, or plant-based burgers. They're not even real beef anymore. And they're trying to get people's taste moved away from real beef over to more of a plant-based diet. This is part of a UN agenda that I actually read to y'all in one of the videos that I did earlier, which a lot of this really doesn't surprise me. And guys, let's just be plain and blunt about this right now. Why is all this happening? Well, I can think of a couple of reasons. First off, because I'm going to use the Bible at this point, I do believe we're living in the latter days of, now listen to what I'm saying, because I get chewed out about this on my channel all the time. Listen to what I'm saying. And I don't mean to try to talk like you talk to a child, but I have to put this in layman's terms. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying we're living in the latter days of an age. I did not say it was the end of the world, because this is nothing new. Mankind on the face of the earth has went through cycles where we've done without food. We've had famines, we've had pestilences, we've had coldnesses, we've had food shortages, we've had dust bowls, we've had wars, we've had loss of food. We've had all these things in the past. So it's not the end of the world, okay? Let's just get that straight. But it is a Tiawaki. It's the end of the world as you know it. See, those two words on the end changes it all. The end of the world as you know it. As you know it to be. Now, what does it mean? It just simply means, guys, we've got to be more frugal about what we're doing. We've got to prepare better. We've got to learn more. We've got to have better skills. We've got to be better about what we're doing with our food system. We've got to learn how to take care of ourselves and realize that nobody's going to take care of us. We've got to do it for ourselves. We've got to learn canning skills. We've got to learn growing skills. Yes, we're going into some weather anomalies, whether they be man-made, climate-made, solar, whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is this: whoever controls the food controls the people. Now, you can say geoengineering is destroying everything. You can say the grand solar minimum is destroying everything. You can say the magnetic field around the world is destroying everything. You can say that climate change is destroying everything. Global warming is destroying everything. The bottom line is this: I don't care which one it is. The bottom line is there is going to be a problem with having enough food. Now, I didn't say we have a food shortage right now. because listen to what, I hate I have to do this, but listen to what I'm saying. Food shortage is not something that you just wake up tomorrow morning and it has happened. The shortage of food is something that is progressive because we have stockpiles of food in some areas. There's food in stores all over the United States. There's food in all places of the world right now. Food shortages just simply means this, that over a period of time, whether it be 3 months, 6 months, a year, the ability to raise enough food to keep a society going dwindles and decreases, and that society is not able to keep the amount of food that it needs to stay healthy and viable. Then we go into what's called food shortages. Now, we've experienced some of these things during the world wars. My parents have told me they rationed sugar, they rationed flour, they rationed this, rubber, shoes, leather, whatever. My grandfather was a cobbler. He talked about you couldn't get leather a lot of times to do shoes with. They gave stamps out. You had tokens. There's all these things that you had. This is not new, guys. There has been shortages before, but it did not happen overnight. It is something, when I talk about food shortages now, I'm not talking about right now. We go to the grocery store. Yes, I've seen the signs. I personally have took pictures of them myself, where it says there is a shortage of food between, I don't know, July the something and August the 2nd or whatever. We won't have any green beans on the shelf because there's a shortage of these. I have seen that, but that does not mean we're running out of green beans. That just simply means that there's a marketing scheme going on. Del Monte has admitted they're marketing right now. Other companies are admitting that they're marketing things. They're trying to figure out how to put stuff in smaller packages and raise the prices or keep the prices the same because the economy is not the best, and they realize they're showing a decrease in profit in their markets, and they're having to come up with ways to keep the income of these companies at a certain level in order to be able to stay afloat. That's why we're seeing a lot of this. There's a lot of restructuring going on in companies. Now, it's not the end of the world. I do believe in Revelations. Like I mentioned a while ago, we was going to talk about some Bible stuff. I do believe in Revelations. It mentions that a measure of wheat for a denarius, in other words, it's going to take all the money you can earn to be able to afford the food to feed someone. Yes, I do believe that's going to happen because the Bible says it's going to happen. People are talking about buy up silver, buy up gold. There's a verse in the Bible. Google it. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to spoon feed you everything. I want you to look for yourself because I don't want you saying, well, Danny said this. Look it up. It says, there will come a day they will cast the gold and the silver into the streets and they will curse it because they cannot eat it. And when you see something like that, that tells me that they're having a problem with food because they have gold, they have silver, they have the money, the food's not available, so they're throwing it in the street, they're cursing it because they can't eat it, they want food to go in the belly, and there's not any food to buy even though they have money. Okay? We're seeing that happen in the near future, I believe. I don't think we're at that point right now, but I believe in the very near future, probably within 1 to 2 years, we're probably going to see that. Now, when I say food shortages, I'm thinking maybe 1 year away. We're going to start seeing what I call a true food shortage. Here at Deepsouth Homestead, we're experiencing growing issues. We're having more problems with viruses hitting stuff this year. We're having more problems, even though we're putting some plants in the shades. The intensity of the sun is still taking more water out of stuff than what I'm able to put in at this time. I've got to redesign my whole setup here so that I can keep enough water to this stuff underground, that I don't rot the roots, but yet I keep enough water and nutrition that I keep the plants going and I keep them out of the sun enough that they're not being baked. Because the grand solar minimum, let's get this straight, let me straighten this out, is not about forming a freaking ice age. The grand solar minimum is about weather extremities. It's about being hotter when it's hot. It's about being colder when it's cold. It's about being colder longer when it's cold. It's about being hotter longer when it's hot. It's not about the fact that we're going to wake up and be like the behemoths was, that they found buttercups sitting in the mouth because of some volcanic eruption that took place and caused the atmosphere of the earth to change and the earth to tilt a little bit off its axis and cause the cold weather to come down real quick and to freeze something that fast. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the weather changing and man interfering with it because he wants to say, quote unquote, he has a part in it and he's trying to save the universe. You know, these are the kind of things that, I mean, I may sound a little perturbed, but it's because I am. It's because there's so many out there that just don't get this thing. And I get so many messages like, dude, you just walked the wall. You're whacked in the head. You know, you're whatever. And that's okay if you want to feel that way. The bottom line is this. If the Lord gives me breath and he gives me health, I'm going to survive because I've paid attention. To him who hath an ear, let him hear. That's what it says. It also talks about in Ecclesiastes and Proverbs, it talks about a prudent man or a wise man sees the destruction coming and he makes provisions for it, or he hides himself. In other words, he takes care of it ahead of time. You don't wait till it happens, because let me tell you something. If you wait till there is a food shortage to do anything, you will not be able to make it. You must do it ahead of time. It takes thought to do these things. Okay, guys, I've been doing this long enough now. Hopefully, I've cleared up some of the things that's been sent to me. I've looked into some of these things. I don't have a lot of time. I'm at the cabin now because I'm busting my butt trying to get the outside of my cabin done before the harsh winter weather comes, and I lose the outside of my building here. That's where I'm at working. I'm constantly working on it. I'm constantly trying to stay in the gardens. I'm constantly trying to deal with animals. I'm constantly trying to keep my vehicles going and everything like, you know, my tractors. I mean, I'm not having any problem with my tractors, but I have to still do things with my tractor. I'm looking for easier ways to do what we do with the weather anomalies that we're having, guys. And I urge you to do exactly the same thing. So thank you, guys, from Deepsouth Homestead.